So now on the right side of the screen, you're going to see the chat from all the platforms. So, so that's kind of cool. And let's see, I just want to double check and make sure it's connecting. I usually have two computers set up, but I'm not able to do that right now. It looks like we're okay. As soon as we see some people come in.
It's on me.
All right. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right, we got 7 people. I just want to verify. I tell you what, I'm going to do that while I'll play the intro and give people time to come in. We'll be back with a very, very beautiful, beloved, and as I understand, brave sister that's been doing this for a long, long time. We're going to get to know her. Many of you know her. We'll see you in a minute, 19 seconds. We'll be right back. How's it going, everybody? Todd Medina, Soulogy Network, reporting from the front line of the apocalypse, the great unveiling. This is why we came. We've got a beautiful, beloved sister in the house that evidently everybody knows her but me. I know her name, Patricia, Cota-Robles, in Tucson, Arizona. It's such a pleasure. Thank you for coming in and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence. And I just want to echo another comment that I've seen several times on the announcement and already on the show, which is thank you for the service that you provided humanity all these years. How long has it been?
Well, I began my first outreach and meditations in 1968. So I've been around a very long time.
Holy shiitake mushrooms. 1968. I was 7 years old.
Yes,
oh my
I
God.
went on maternity leave with my son, and that's when I, you know, like everybody else, I've been the awakening process on my personal quest since I was really a lot younger than that. But yes, we are. I'm honored to be here, Todd. Thank you for inviting me. We're really, really blessed to do this work. When you say that people are thanking me for my service, I can't even tell you what a privilege it is, an honor to be able to do this service with everybody that's out there doing equal work.
Yeah, I get a kick out of talking to people that have been, you know, I consider Morgan 20 plus years. That's a long time, but people have come on here and they're talking like early 90s and 80s and before the harmonic, whatever you call that, 1987. You're in the 60s, and I remember that time period very well, because I was born December 61, so I would have been 6, 7 years old. And I remember the climate at the time. I remember going to my grandparents' house and watching TV and watching the Vietnam War on TV and all the protests, the assassinations. There was a lot of really, you know, in retrospect and being able, because I'm a history buff, looking back, there was a lot of energy going on there. Was there, did you receive like a download to kick you off, or was it something you already had?
It was really something I had for a long time. You know, I, like everybody else, was born in, you know, to challenging situations, going through difficult things as children and growing up, and realizing I just had this inner knowing that this pain and suffering we were all experiencing was not the way it was supposed to be in this physical plane. So I knew that I was going to somehow find the answer as to why that's going on and what we can do about it. And so my understanding in this shift that was taking place, obviously, as the light increases on Earth, it pushes everything to the surface. So in the 60s, it was pushing all of the oppression, all of the separation between men and women, and the whole idea of the hippie consciousness and the awakening and the free love and shifting women's roles and the civil rights movement. And we're in a very similar place right now. You know, it's like another wave of this moving into even higher frequencies. But recognizing kind of the collective oneness of all humanity. And so I'm sure in my own way, I was being prompted and guided. And when I go through my physical search and realized that we were supposed to be going within and connecting with the higher realms of truth, because I went through, like everybody else, I think, the gamut of world religions and psychology and the power of the mind and metaphysics, and none of the answers I was seeking are on the outside. You know, I'd go to the religious leaders, why are we going through this? And they'd say consistently, well, it's because Eve ate that darned apple, you know.
They blamed it on her too.
And go through the academics through it all, and they'd say, well, matter evolves out of chaos by happenstance, and we evolved from an amoeba in a mud puddle just by chance. There's no greater purpose or reason. So none of that was very fulfilling. So
well, only the patriarchal would blame it on a woman, right?
That's right.
I mean, it wasn't Eve, it was Adam the whole time.
Right.
But yeah, that's really interesting. I've thought about this quite a bit. I thought about, you know, just in my own. So I was becoming very conscious at 6, 7 years old, picking up on a lot of things, and I remember these things like yesterday. I remember when RFK got shot. I watched his speech, like so many people, you know. But now that I've spent 5+ years, you know, in a relationship with a energy practitioner who sees everything as energy and an ET, I start looking at everything as energy. And you're right. What do you think's the difference? Are there any differences between now and the 60s?
Yes, huge differences between now and the 60s. The 60s was a process, an awakening process that led us up to beginning to recognize this of all life. And you know, when the Timothy Leary and Ram Dass started promoting LSD trips, and I never did any of that. I didn't even smoke a marijuana cigarette. You know, that was just not my style in those days, but lots and lots of people were. And the whole idea, I mean, it was like a crash course of even realizing there was a higher level of consciousness. So that really, and this make love, not war, and free love, all of that was humanity's way of beginning, the kids, the young people, way of, you know, just rejecting the rigidity of roles and that kind of thing. And even, I mean, what happened with the Vietnam War was just horrific, because we were so awful to the soldiers, you know. And at that time, those kids were drafted. Nobody went into war because they wanted to and volunteered. They were forced, or else they were considered, you know, they had to flee to Canada to get out of that. They were considered war dodgers and stuff. So when the soldiers came back, and people were spitting on them and, you know, horrible things after we did that. But it was the beginning of this shift of consciousness, that we have choices and we are not victims. But since then, that was the beginning of an awakening. Since then, we've gone through huge transformations and harmonic convergence. That was the major beginning shift of the shift of the ages, which was a 25-year period that began in August of 1987. We have an annual, my organization is a nonprofit educational organization, Era of Peace, and we have an annual conference, a global conference that began. The first one we had was in Hawaii for Harmonic Convergence in August 87. And that began a 20-year awakening process So yeah, this year we're having the 35th, and it's going to be, I'll just mention, it's going to be a virtual one again this year, and it's free and open to the public, so anybody can.
So when is that? Is that
It's going to be
August?
August 14th through the
Okay.
19th, and it's a 2-hour live transmission every day for those 6 days. And the company of heaven, the beings of light, work with cooperation. But what this is the beings of light have said that they, in unison with our Father, Mother, God, the beings of light evaluate the light that's been added to the world throughout the entire year, and then how that bouquet of humanity's collective light work can be used to move forward the greatest shift in humanity's consciousness. And this year, that shift is creating a quantum field of comprehensive divine love. And that's a new expression of love that we're learning about.
Yeah.
It's the highest frequencies of our Father, Mother, God's love that humanity can assimilate safely at this time. And by creating this quantum field, we are told that we will be able to create a unified shift of consciousness that will be able to sustain unity consciousness for the masses of humanity. So they said it's truly beyond the comprehension of our finite mind.
Well,
The words that we're being told.
To me, that's what I've been saying on this show. It's such a gift to sit in this seat and listen to everybody's experiences and intel, and I keep saying to myself, whatever's going to happen, nobody has an idea. Nobody could even conceive it, because we're just there's just no way. But whatever it is, it's going to be beautiful. It's huge. I mean, and it's ramped up so much. Obviously 2020 was such a gift. We had somebody come on and they said that their guides had told them that more people awakened in 2020 than the previous 10 years, which was a lot of people in the previous 10 years. But to me, this first 4 months of 2021 is about 1 million times bigger than 2020. It's moving so fast. I wanted to ask you, it seems like, now what you just described to me was perfect. It was a perfect explanation of how I see things. I don't think I could have stated that, and I'm a pretty good talker, but it looks to me like what's happening, this description that you gave about this consciousness being enhanced and amplified, it's happening in a very non-physical, non-linear type of way. In other words, it's almost like a cosmic fire hydrant got turned on, and nothing down here can turn it off. It is that love, that higher awareness and activation of this love that you're talking about. Do you see it being that way, or did you see some people?
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me just share with you, the harmonic convergence was, this 25-year period leading up to the shift of the ages, which was to occur on December 21st and 22nd in 2012. And there was all kinds of interpretations of how that was going to happen. Most people were focusing on the shift of the Mayan calendar, at that time, and the 5,025-year or 125-year completion. But the beings of light said it was far greater than that. They said the shift of the ages is a moment in time that happens every so many millions of years, when cycles within cycles within cycles dovetail into one heartbeat with our Father, Mother, God. And during that cosmic moment, our Father, Mother, God inbreathe the whole of creation up the spiral of evolution to the next octave of our learning against. And so what's happening on Earth now is that we are in the midst of a unique experiment. Never in the whole of creation has a fallen planet been given the opportunity to move through 2 dimensional shifts in such a short period of time. And what the beings of light have revealed that is so important for us to know, because what's happening now is that there's myriad activities of light taking place all over the planet, all of them, each and every one, is critical to the success of this experiment. Even those souls that are being utilized to bring the negativity to the surface by acting out adversely or whatever. Because as the light comes in, it pushes everything that conflicts with that light to the surface. But what the beings of light want us to know, and I recently really am stressing this for 2021, is that every single person on the planet at this time, because we are in the midst of this unique experiment that has never been attempted before, and it's critical that we succeed, every single person on the planet was selected to be here at this moment prior to this embodiment because of their extraordinary collective individual lifetimes and how they handled adversity and challenges. And we were chosen not because we're more special or wonderful than our sisters and brothers, but the beings of light said that with the billions of souls that volunteered selflessly to be here, those that were selected because the company of heaven and our Father, Mother, God felt that we would have a better chance of staying focused on the light in the midst of all of the purging and cleansing that's going on at this time. So we have everything we need within us. We have all the skill, wisdom, knowledge, courage. Now we just need to connect with the magnitude of what is happening. Because once we do that, then we will begin really remembering. And our God self, our I am is integrating in new ways and connecting with us. It's no longer just that still small voice. It's literally a loud, intuitive inner knowing that we're beginning to awaken to.
Yeah. And external collaborations or involvement. I've noticed that, and we've talked about it a lot on the show. Just it could be elementals, could be animals, could be colors, lights, visitations. I love what you said. You're speaking my language. You're speaking the language of what we pursue and seek here over the last 10 years. There's no doctrine. There's no dogma. It's simply what you described so well. I don't know what you're talking about with the purging that's going on. I haven't seen any. No, I'm kidding. I really like what you said earlier. I know, I'm kidding. Believe me, we talk about it every day on here, and they see me half the time showing up, and I shouldn't. But yeah, I was talking actually to our mutual friend that I mentioned to you before the show this morning, and the conversation, and I think we've all had this conversation before, which is, oh my God, how much longer is this going to be? How much more do we have to put up with? But I really resonate with what you're saying because, yes, I've always felt like we volunteered. Our free will was first exercised to come here in the first place. That's the first choice we made. And second thing, not everybody could come because, and again, it wasn't like you said, like somebody's better than somebody else. It was just somebody's more cut out for this particular intense mission. But I love what you said because to me, this is what 2021 feels like. Even after hearing the stories and going through my own stuff and everything else and all the stuff that's happened, particularly in January and February, and then all the purging being done in March and April, there's this sense that everything is going our way. Like no matter the shedding and the purging, everything just keeps getting better and better and better every day. And it sounds like that's where you're coming from.
Absolutely. And the reason things look more chaotic in the outer world is because as the light comes in, it pushes the garbage to the surface. And what's happening is we easily, through our five senses, see the garbage in the outer world. What we don't see is the incredible light that's pushing that garbage to the surface. And this is a time when we need to really start connecting with the magnitude of this opportunity. And one of the things that is so encouraging that the beings of light, who are our sisters and brothers from the realms of truth that have been assisting us and guiding us through this, one of the things that is important to understand is that because of this unique experiment that's never been attempted before in all creation of this greatly accelerated ascension process, that the greatest privilege and honor of any son or daughter of God throughout all creation is physical embodiment on planet Earth during this cosmic moment.
Yeah.
As when we victoriously succeed, because there is no turning back,
Yeah.
we are taking the depths of humanity's miscreations into the light.
Yeah.
If we could think of this purging, if we could think of this garbage, is that what our life force is the gift of life that beats our heart and activates our brain and flows through our acupuncture meridians, that we send forth with every thought, word, action, or feeling. And this life force that we receive on the holy breath, which is why we take the first breath at birth and the last breath when we leave this physical plane, is always pure and vibrating with the harmony of God. But we have the free will choice of how we're going to use that. So we can take that and misqualify it into these gross mutations of hate and anger. But what we need to realize is that we're responsible for those choices. So the energy coming back to us through our chaotic outer world life experiences is this pure, intelligent, electronic light energy that is coming back to this in this gross mutated form, that this, like a battered child, that we are being asked to love back into the light and to transmute back into the light. There's no eliminating. We can't just say cancel, cancel. We have to love that energy back into the light. So when you ask, when are we going to start seeing more tangible efforts? It's when we reach a critical mass of the negativity being transmuted back into light. And all the negativity is, and all the fall was, is that at some point in our evolution, we made the conscious decision to start using our creative faculties of thought and feeling and this precious gift of life in ways that weren't based in love. So we started creating these gross mutations. So now as we're reversing that, and it's happening because millions and billions of people on the planet are invoking the light, we're going to reach that critical mass sooner than we think.
Yeah.
The birth of the new earth and the shifts that are taking place have already been God victoriously accomplished in the realms of cause.
Right.
Now we're bringing it into the physical plane.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. This is the easiest show I've ever done. But I have a very curious mind. So there's so many things I could go, so many directions I could go with you. Sure. The first thing I just have to find out from you. I mean, you've been what, 33, 43, 53, over 50 years.
Yeah.
Franco de Nicola comes on twice a month, and he's been doing what you're doing for 36. You know, and like you, he knew before he came out, but what, how do you feel? I mean, 50 plus years you've been showing up with your lunch pail every day and doing the good work. And I mean, is it just me? I mean, you would have the best perspective. How are we doing? Because it sure feels like we're accelerating timelines. It sure feels like we're doing a great job.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying. Go ahead.
No, what the beings of light are telling us, and what my experience is that we are succeeding far beyond the greatest expectations of heaven. And because of that, when we moved through this shift into the birth of this new decade, which is going to be extraordinary in the transformation that we're going through, we were told by the beings of light in about mid-January, that cosmic dispensations have been granted because of the success of what has taken place up to that point, that is allowing greater collaboration between the company of heaven than cosmic law has ever allowed before. And they said, we are going to be receiving assistance from on high beyond anything that's ever been attempted. And then within a matter, we had no idea what that meant. Within the matter of a week, we started hearing about COVID. And within a month and a half, we had this forced timeout, this absolutely pause, and I'm not saying the beings of light created COVID, but we use pain as our motivator, and the beings of light utilize these outer world manifestations for the highest good as well. And so we had this forced timeout where everyone had to just stop. And what happened, if we just think about it, like you said, this incredible shift. I know a lot of painful things went on, and financially, and people losing their jobs and their loved ones leaving the physical plane. But what happened with COVID is we had to start focusing on the breath and our holy breath as we started recognizing this. We had to start focusing on our interconnectedness, on the oneness of all life, recognizing our hearts literally were cracked open, recognizing the essential workers and people that collect the garbage and clean, and grocery workers and hospital workers and medical workers, how people all over the world going through the identical same thing, that we are one and we're in this together. So it created this chalice of light that allowed the company of heaven to pour light into the physical plane. And without all of the outer world chatter, the I am presence, the soul, our divinity within each of us could expand that intuitive inner knowing. And like you said, the beings of light have said millions and millions of people have awakened since the birth of this new decade. And that's being accelerated. And what happened in 2020 is that we reached a frequency of vibration, literally that critical mass of vibration. The masses of humanity were vibrating at a higher frequency at a cellular level that allowed our I am presence to integrate, so that now every person's I am presence is able to speak more clearly, rather than, as I mentioned, that still small voice or that far distant frequency. It is integrating in perfect alignment individually with our divine plans. But this allowed for the solstice in December of 2020. Many of you will be aware of that. This was an incredibly powerful solstice that coincided with a grand conjunction that hadn't taken place in this frequency, this closeness, in over 400 years between Jupiter and Saturn. And what occurred during that conjunction is that our I am presence, working with our Father, Mother, God, and the company of heaven, was able to elevate every person's holy breath and our life force. So now every person on this planet, whether they're consciously aware of it or not, is breathing higher frequencies of prana and our life force, which is lifting us up with every holy breath. So when we moved then, as you're talking about, into this new year of 2021, we are moving quantum shifts. And this May is considered the mystical month of May by the beings of light, because many activities of light are taking place. But we've had huge shifts of moving into the full embrace of the age of Aquarius, moving into the full, with the equinox in March, with a very powerful full moon, Passover and Easter, the very incredibly powerful shifts that took place on Earth Day with the collective cup of consciousness. Earth Day, it's expected that over 1 billion people participate consciously. 192 countries join together in consciousness in some way or another, focusing on the love and healing within the elemental kingdom, which includes our physical, etheric, mental, and emotional bodies as well. So now we're just moving more and more. And this is just the beginning. The rest, we were told in January when we were given the mission for this 35th annual World Congress, which, as I said, is creating this comprehensive field of divine love and this new shift into awareness of unity, consciousness. And that they said the frequency that will come in August, that we will need many higher shifts of vibration at a cellular level for the masses to be able to withstand that. And so that's what we're experiencing now, these huge shifts.
Yeah, we sure are. and so now you're the first one I've talked to that has mentioned August. But my feeling, picking up the information that I do, what Morgan shares with me, and then what I might receive. But my feeling has been it is going to be one heck of a summer. And by the end of this summer, I don't think we're going to recognize, or either that, or it's going to be like, wow, did we just travel that far in the last 100 days?
Yes.
Because Franco De Nicola, Jason Estes, I think Sandra Walters talked about this a little bit. Everybody kind of had this thing where, hey, when it's going to be like this, and then May's going to come, and about halfway through May, it's going to open wide up. And I know I don't explain that very well, but I get it. The feeling, the sensitivities, it just feels like we're being unchained, and like the only energy that's impeding or potentially impeding is just coming from here now. It's like I don't know, when they talked about instant manifestation for years and years and years, as I was part of this platform, I always looked at it as the secret kind of thing, right? Oh, I want a new car,
Right.
But it's not. It's actually, and I've had this occur really loud. I was telling Morgan in the last 2-3 days, where I guess vibrationally, frequency wise, like right before I left for the road trip, I jumped out of the house. I went and tried to get gas. I couldn't get the gas cap off. I lost my credit card, which I never do, my bank card. And then all of a sudden, I'm having a conversation the whole time. And then all of a sudden, they just came in and said, look, you know how to do this, right? And I said, yes. They said, well, then just do it. She taught me this 3-finger mudra. I put it on. 3 minutes later, boom, everything's fine. And then from there, everything was synchronistic and sequential, and in its communication that I'm on the right track. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel like there's this element of instant manifestation, which is maybe better described as instant rebalancing, or re-anchoring in the higher dimensions that we've found ourselves step into these last few years with all the work we've done. Do you see, because I'm shooting for it personally, but do you see the potential of us doing what we might have once called supernatural, like physical teleportation, real bilocation? I mean, things that we normally do in dimension that we will be able to do in our physical bodies?
Oh, absolutely. See, this is what all the prophecies talked about in the new heaven and the new earth, that we will be able to, manifest, and there'll be no disease and no poverty and no illness, where these weren't just, it wasn't just religious rhetoric or lofty platitudes. It was truly a profound knowing. And one of the things that helped me understand that so clearly is when we talk about this shift of the ages, the whole of creation moves up the spiral of evolution into the next octave. And when we used to go through near-death experiences and we'd pass through the dark tunnel, which is just a sea of negative energy around the earth, into the light, and our loved ones would meet us, they were really functioning in the 5th dimension. And there was no one there that was struggling to pay a mortgage or, working with healing their bodies. They were drawing unformed primal light and manifesting what they wanted. Well, with the shift of the ages, that realm is now the 6th dimension. All of our loved ones out of embodiment have moved to a higher frequency. And we moved into the initial impulse of this 5th dimension. And in this 5th dimension, all of the poverty and aging and things can't exist. Those are only 3rd dimensional frequencies from our carbon-based planetary bodies. And we are moving into, through this divine alchemy, fifth dimensional crystalline solar light bodies. And the beings of light said, if we could envision in this new crystalline frequency that we are moving in, and Todd, it's important for us to know that when we talk about the challenges, we think of the physical plane as being very real because we can see it and touch it with our physical senses. But the beings of light said that we are multidimensional beings, and the physical plane of Earth is actually the least real of all of the dimensions we abide in, and it is the very last dimension that is reflecting these changes. So through our higher multidimensional self, the new Earth is already being co-created in all those frequencies. And the beings of light said, if we would envision now the most glorious expression of the new Earth, you know, what would our lives be like? And they said, we just dared to dream to the most imaginative, wonderful thing. They said, no matter how glorious our vision, it is going to be scratching the surface compared to what we are actually going to be creating. And that what we are going to be able to actually do is beyond the comprehension of our finite minds at this particular point.
Oh, I totally agree. And I totally agree with what you said earlier too. And it only makes sense, you know, as above, below, macro to micro. If you look at the people, I'm sure with yourself too, because you made the reference early in the show that you've spent this, you haven't just spent 50 years serving out there, you've been working on yourself the whole time too. But you know, the people talk about the dark night of the soul. And you know, if you look at us as a collective one body, those of us who have walked the earth, and you look at the collective human story, we didn't go, we're transmuters, we're transformers. The degrees of the depths that we've gone into the darkness, so to speak, that by the degree we're going to be able to go into, and I've always believed this, that we're not going back to the original blueprint. We're not going back to these templates. We're actually have these already, and we're going to expand them based on this experience that we've had. And then one other thing, I just wanted to comment on what you said, because I totally get that we're the last stand, right? I mean, and I really feel more than ever this year that yes, this has been done in the energetic field, and boom, 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 it's coming. And we're still playing it out, and we still have the ability to say maximize potential moment by moment. But at the same time, I feel like we've gone into this, especially around the equinox in March. Like I walked outside and I went, whoa, wait a minute, something's totally different now. And then a lot of people started saying it. And what I'm getting at, it's like, I remember my higher self came in and said, what you don't understand is that we're learning from you too. In other words, we're giving you information, but you're giving us information, and you're starting to wake up to that now. And that just like really made the hair on my back just stand straight up. I thought, wow, we are actually equal aspects at the monadic, you know, so to speak, the monadic oversoul roundtable. We are, right?
Not only equal, but critical. We have to do this. Nobody can do this for us. Nobody can save us. They can only bring in the light and respond to our invocations. There's a universal law that the call for assistance must come from the realm where the assistance is needed. So we need, in physical embodiment, need to make the calls. That's why we're here. And when you talk about the challenges, the beings of light have said, never try to judge what light burns in a crude exterior, because some of the most powerful beings of light have volunteered to delve into some of the darkest, heaviest places on the planet, because they had a better chance of awakening and pulling those energies into the light, because as I am lifted up, all life is lifted up with me. So many people have volunteered to go through really some powerful changes and lift this energy up. So absolutely, we are essential in this.
I agree with what you said too. You know, one of my personal objectives is to merge or do what I can as a representing Soulogy, to merge the platforms of conspiracy, disclosure, and let's say starseeds into one voice, because there's enough lines of separation there, and we're supposed to be leading the way, you know. But part of that has to do with the lack of coherence. Part of it has to do with these atrocities and these horrific things, and we know about these things. But at the same time, we also know from a higher perspective what you said is true. Now, I had a lady on a couple of weeks ago. One of her callings is that she's working with victims of sex trafficking. And she was telling me about this lady that she was working with, and that the lady came in for a session, and she said, Todd, this woman who had been kidnapped and obviously assaulted, raped, and so on, imprisoned all these years. I met this woman, and she absolutely had nothing but compassion and unconditional love for her tormentors, for her abusers. And I was like, whoa, that's it. And then I asked her, I said, so is there, because the work she's doing isn't really categorically classified as energy practitionership, right? It's not looked at that way, although she implements it. So it's more of a traditional type of therapeutic thing. And I said, but, does anything happen like when you do, sessions and the higher self shows up or something comes in? She said, all I can tell you is that the people that I've sat down with that have endured this are masters. They're all masters. And she was just in awe of them. So I totally agree with what you're saying. And that's the type of frequency, I think, and information that a type of it that needs to be absorbed and the awareness expanded, because there, what you said earlier, all of these points of contention, even in the light worker community, they're just a line of separation, and it always starts with us, right? I mean,
and that's the way, there, as we know, there have been powers that be in the physical plane that have manipulated and controlled for eons of time, enslavement codes and all of those kinds of things, to have, the greed, the corruption, all of that. Something had to happen to have billions of people cooperate at that level with our lifestyles that would allow a very few people to be controlling and manipulating and everything at that level. So there's no doubt that we've been going through all different kinds of things. But nevertheless, what's happening now is that those old paradigms are crumbling away. And this is part of what we've been hearing about COVID. We are never going to go back to the way it was. Everything is crumbling away, and things are shifting, and people aren't going to be able to close down their hearts. And just like what happened in the 60s with the civil rights and things like that, that's going on now. And anything that conflicts with unity consciousness, anyone that has an us against them consciousness, all of that's being pushed to the surface and being exposed, and people are shocked and disappointed that there's still that much going on in the outer world. But if it wasn't so tragic and destructive, it would actually be funny, because the earth is a schoolroom of learning, and we've all been everything. We've been every religion, every gender, every lifestyle, everything, culture and creed and all of that, because we learn very different things in those experiences. And for us to be discriminating against another person because of the color of their skin or because of their religion, it's like our physical bodies are the car we drive. It's not who we are as a being. So this shift that's going on is awakening, and it is not going to be sustained. This is just coming to the surface, but it has to be exposed. It's gone on forever. The abuse of power, the shift, the greed, the corruption, all of that's gone on forever. But there is such an awakening taking place, and the masses of humanity are realizing that's what this mission is, for us to reach this moment. And I'll share with you that, for instance, May is considered the mystical month of May. May 5th was, it created this numerical frequency. 2021 is a 5-year, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 1 equals 5. So on May 5th, it was the 5th month of the 5th day of the 5th year. And the beings of light said it created a numerical sequency. Now, there's always that kind of portal and gateway open during those times. But they said that the beings of light said that for the first time, cosmic law is allowing this brand new stargate to open to full breadth because of the shifts we have taken since the March equinox that you're talking about, that we can withstand. So on March 5th, this new stargate through all dimensions of consciousness into the highest frequency of fifth dimensional crystalline solar light, which is what we are using to transform our physical bodies into our light bodies and create the new earth. New frequencies are pouring into the planet at a cellular level. So this has created this quantum shift. And as you mentioned, is moving us. There'll be several other things. And I'll just share with your viewers that I do a weekly vlog that's just a little video that lasts about 15 minutes. And I send it out every Tuesday. We have a monthly newsletter, and all the information about these shifts like we're talking about, I make available through the weekly vlog and the newsletter. Those are free. You can just go to our website and sign up if you'd like to receive them. But the beings of light are guiding us through this process, and moving up to the summer solstice is going to be, tremendous energies and shifts taking place between now and even then.
Katie bar the door, like we say in Texas.
That's right.
I'm excited. So much of what you say is validating for me because I'm always. It's amazing to watch people and talk to people on this show, and then I look at my own experiences, and it always feels like what I'm getting is I'm almost like as it comes out, it's almost like you're making it up. So there's always that level of, am I just crazy? Which is crazy because we've all had so many divine episodes that, we forget. But anyway, what I'm getting at, there's something different since March. What you're speaking of feels like that everything going our way kind of thing. And then you see the path has got these benchmarks, and it's the eclipse at the end of the month, and it's the solstice, and I'm going, whoa, like 5 years ago, if you would have told me Lionsgate 5 years ago, I'd have been like, okay, well, but then each year they get bigger and bigger, and the representation in the field is bigger, and the continuity with what you see others are doing is bigger. I mean, I can't even begin to think what it's going to be like at the end of the year.
Right. And there's no turning back, and even though things may seem familiar, I keep saying we have to develop a new vocabulary, because with this new energy coming in, it's different spectrums of possibility. Yeah. It's new colors, new frequencies, new musical tones beyond anything we've ever experienced. And you can only say monumental and phenomenal and brand new so many times, But the reality is that every time you say that, as you're happening, it is, and even though we've gone through lots of March equinoxes, this one was different in a higher vibration than we'd ever experienced before. And next year it'll be even higher, They said, as I said, prior to COVID in January, that these were going to be collaborations with the company of heaven beyond anything that cosmic law had ever allowed or even attempted. I mean, can you fathom that?
Far out. That's all I can say. Well, no, yeah. I agree, and of course, being in, we're very public, or I'm very public, I guess, because I'm on every day. Morgan tries to be reserved, she'll come on sometimes, but we're public about our relationship. It's part of Soulogy. I mean, we know that's part of our mission. So some of this is known information. But in our, so we got to download during this period in March. She needed to go back home. So for the human aspects, it was like, oh my God, but something had changed. The math had changed, right? Like you said, a new language. The math had changed. The geometry had changed. We understood. And so we did it. Now we look at this, and I'm just using this as an example of what you're saying. So we have these conversations, and I know, like, I guess we all kind of know our part, right? She has certain things that and I do too. Part of what I'm picking up on is there's no borders, there's no passports, there's no restrictions, there's no limitations. These constructs in the 3D are like you said, they're being deconstructed, they're crumbling, they're rooted in duality, but at a individual level, I feel like, and I could be wrong, I just feel like that myself and people like me, and maybe it's everybody, is being presented with the opportunity to transform or leap above and beyond these illusionary constructs. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's absolutely true. And the reality is that, when we talk about that changes have already transpired in the higher realms, well, the way it manifests is that we magnetize it from the realms of cause into the world of effects, which is the physical plane, through our thoughts, words, actions, and feelings. And so we have to connect with these energies. And I've been talking about this for 50 years, that in the not too distant future, and it's actually happened over all these decades, is that we're going to be called to travel all over the world or to connect collectively, which is what we're doing now with the internet. Like today, this is what we're doing. And that we need to be free to do that because we are one and we are connecting. See, the difference is that people have attained their ascension in the past. They've completed their earthly sojourn, and after they leave the physical plane, they ascend into the next octave of their learning experience. This time, we're taking the earth, humanity, the elemental kingdom, and all life with us. And this happens every shift of the ages, that it moves forward, but never has a planet that's fallen to this level been given the opportunity, because the rest of our solar system in the last evolutionary period, the last shift of the ages, moved into the fourth dimension. And the earth agreed to take on the laggard souls, or the souls that weren't going to make it. And we made that offer as an act of divine love, with the idea of being able to raise our sisters and brothers up. But instead, that ultimately is what caused the fall, So even though this is complex, there's a lot of information that I've shared in my books and things that tell you the details of that. But the reality is that never has a planet offered that kind of compassion and love, the beings of light said. So nobody is willing to give up on us. We got in this mess by trying to help, shift the consciousness and raise the consciousness of our sisters and brothers. So we are receiving unprecedented assistance. That's what this unique experiment is. And we are succeeding beyond the expectations of heaven. There is no turning back. Our success is guaranteed because it's already been victoriously accomplished in the realms of cause. The only variable is how long that's going to take. And that depends on you and me and the rest of awakening humanity, how fast we transmute the surfacing negativity back into light, how fast we assist our sisters and brothers in shifting the mass consciousness into unity consciousness, so that we can all start functioning from that place of revering and reveling in our diversities, allowing that space, knowing that we can't have a negative thought, word, action, or feeling that doesn't harm all creation, let alone just us. It harms every facet of life, and that on the contrary, every bit of light we add to the world lifts everybody up. So
that's right.
We're called to fulfill our divine mission.
Yeah.
When you mentioned, you're the person you had been communicating with that was working with sex trafficking. We all have different missions. We need to not be manipulated. The forces, I call them the forces of imbalance, those that are just clinging to try to hold on to the power and the corruption and the greed, refusing to let go. those forces in the psychic, through the psychic consciousness, don't say, I'm the sinister force and I've come to mess up your life. They say, I'm God, follow me. And so they always give you enough truth to make you think you're at the right place. And a lot of that's going on with like the conspiracy theories and things like that. You know, there is manipulation. There are control of things that are going on in the outer world. But if we are perpetuated by knowing that, instead of invoking the light to transmute that back into light, if we are perpetuated into creating this war, this us against them, this battle, this fight, with anger and feeling victimized and all of this kind of thing, then we've just fallen hook, line, and sinker.
That's right. You know, and we're great. I think we've done a great job of co-creating this realm, regardless of how they got us here. I'm kidding, but it was interesting too, because you're right about 2020, because first of all, the whole COVID quarantine, the mask thing, energetically speaking, you know, cutting off kids from going to school, taking people out of their routines of the 9 to 5, living with people in the same house and actually having conversations with them after 20 years because you never talked, self-introspection. So all that. And then that election came, and the election really polarized, obviously, and in the whole dark and light thing. And it really polarized in the light worker community. So it was really interesting watching it, and everybody got pulled in. I got pulled in. You know, there were times, how could you not, right? And then you wake up one day and you go, wait a minute, this is like you said, this is the part that's the least real. And the line is, well, the military's in control. I'm like, okay, well, is that supposed to make me feel good? You know, like, you know what I mean? And based on the track record of history, I don't think that's, you know. But anyway, the way that it's kind of played out now. So it's like you said, it all came up. It's all being seen for what it is. And now we're kind of standing there going, okay, what now? And I feel like that maybe this summer is the another beginning in the cycle, and the cycles of that you were talking about, where we start to see some homogenous verbalizations and narratives and commentaries and energies and frequencies from what we call disclosure, conspiracy, starseed, and they start to meld. And it's because one of the things I'm noticing is that there are personalities and then there are energies, and it looks like the people are really gravitating to energy now and less of the personality, if that makes sense.
Right. And every single one of those people in every belief system is a child of God that is here because they've been selected, that is working to move forward in the light. And so if we see people being led astray and still acting out really adversely, we need to flood them with light and ask their own presence to help intuitively guide them, you know, rather than doing battle with them and hating them. And, you know, that totally conflicts. And if we can just realize, I mean, hearing these words of what the collective global mission is for this harmonic, and August, see, this was normally when we have Harmonic Convergence, and it's the World Congress, and it's the anniversary of Harmonic Convergence each year, building on this momentum. And this collective mission is creating an evolutionary shift into a higher frequency of love, comprehensive divine love beyond anything we've ever known or experienced, in order to be able to sustain the presence of unity consciousness through the mass consciousness of humanity. Well, just saying those words, if that could happen in my interpretation, it's going to lift everybody out of this us against them consciousness into the realization of the oneness of the family of humanity and the elemental kingdom and Mother Earth and all life, let alone remind us of our collective I am presence, our individual God self, the company of heaven, and the legions of light throughout infinity that are focusing. And that's another very encouraging point for me, is that the beings of light have said the whole of creation is focusing on this moment on planet Earth, because once we collectively succeed in ultimately transmuting all of our human miscreations, the gross mutations of hate and perversion, and move into the full embrace of this light, we are taking that collective experience with us. So what the fall of humanity did is it moved us into the consciousness, dove us into the consciousness of separation and duality, which has been our bane since that time. What this shift means is that all of this experience is being taken and recorded in the halls of learning. So the beings of light said, from this moment forth, once we complete this ascension process, the sons and daughters of God through all creation will be able to learn about what happens when we make the conscious choice to separate from God or to use our gift of life in ways that aren't based in love, without ever having to go through the fall like we did.
Yeah.
When we volunteered to take on the laggard souls, we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into.
That's what I was told.
We had no concept of what that heavy duty negative energy would be.
Yeah.
And it was just overwhelming.
Yeah.
But now the sons and daughters of God will have that. So they are saying never again will the sons and daughters of God have to fall to the depths of suffering that the earth has created. So they are anxiously awaiting our assistance.
Well, let's get jiggy with it. But yeah, that's so true. I remember when Morgan came the first time from Australia, about 3 days into it, she came into the room and she said, something's coming in, right? And so the mother goddess energy jumped into her. It had never happened to her before, and it had happened a couple of times since. Her whole voice changed. But I remember the mother goddess telling me, and she was speaking to me, but it was really speaking to all of us. And she said, you knew what you were getting into, but you didn't. Like you didn't know how bad, not bad, but you know how, but I think that's very true because, but I look at this whole thing too, as being the ultimate living faith. As I picture, I personally, and this is my own thing, I think if God has a gender, God's a woman, period, a divine feminine. So she's up there, the one, and she says, oh, what if I do this? But my point is creating that twin of hers, let's just put it that way. But it's one thing to create something in control, but it's pure love to create something and give them free will. Made in the image is made in the image. And that just plays in my head. And I think to myself, we are literally gods and goddesses in the flesh. And the only thing that's keeping us from actually being that is all the stuff that we've been through. But it's being peeled off now, just like it has been in our own lives. And I love what you said about these things, these atrocities. And I'm not one of those that says, oh, look at the light. No. It's all there. It's all light. I love what David Icke said when he came on the show. He said, I don't look at it as negative and positive. It's just information to for me to make decisions and navigate as I wish. But in our own lives, those things, especially in the last year and a half, that we have made peace with, the things that I regretted, the things that I did, the things that I didn't do, all those things that we don't want to talk about and tell anybody about. But those are the things that have brought us the gold. And so why would it be any different in our collective experience?
Right.
I mean, oneness is oneness. There is no in between.
Right. And this is all God's light that has been taken and misqualified into these gross mutations. It is coming back. As I said, I think of it like a battered child, so that you have this open heart loving, let me just love this energy back into the light. Let me transmute this greed or this corruption or this war or this outer world negativity or these inclement weather conditions. Let's just flood it with divine love and
Yeah.
healing. And the violet flame, I'm sure you're familiar with the violet flame. You may have heard about that. That's
Yes.
the literally it's the predominant energy from the heart of God that'll be bathing the planet throughout the Aquarian age. And it's the unified frequency of the masculine polarity, our Father God's comprehensive divine love, and our Mother God's uh, power and frequency. It's a unification of those energies,
Yeah.
creating the violet flame. And it's the fastest energy to transmute discord and negativity back into light. So it's a gift that's been given to us at this time to accelerate this purification that's going on. And, we've so moved into the patriarchal stuff from the past. It's fine for you to think of the mother god solely, because we need to balance those energies out. There isn't this duality, there isn't this separation, but there is the out breath and the in breath.
Yeah.
The beings of light have said that the masculine is the out breath, of
Right.
breathing out that creation, and with the power of the spoken word. And that's why in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God. And then the divine feminine is the in breath of breathing the unformed light into the heart of that matrix that was formed by the out breath of our Father, Mother God, drawing unformed primal light, the cohesive power of our Mother God's divine love that holds everything in the pattern of the matrix of whatever is forming. So the out breath and the in breath are our direct connection with source. And now that it has been elevated to these new frequencies, it is all these other things have happened with this shift at the equinox, and what's happening now have happened because of this elevation. I mean, have been able to happen at this frequency because everybody now is breathing higher frequencies of prana and our life force. And so now we can receive through this 555 Stargate, this new higher frequency of crystalline solar light. And this is just another major quantum shift up the spiral of evolution. We're going to have many more by the time we complete this. But this year and this decade are going to be unfathomable from our conscious mind at this point.
Yeah. I can't even look a week in advance now. And because everything's changing here. I mean, people have made reference to time doing really weird things in the last year and a half. And even before that, but I mean, it's accelerated. I feel like space has come into play. 2 nights after Morgan got into quarantine in Australia, we've had many etheric mergings over the years, but this was physical, and we weren't conscious, of each other when it happened. So that's immediately when I experienced that, I went, wait a minute, now space isn't going to be here. Time's not going to be here. Space isn't going to be here. So we just got shown a little something of what's coming. Right. So this is why I really got excited when I should be, I should be as a human going, well, oh my God, the love of my lives is on the other side of the world. And how do I ever know if I'm ever going to see her again? But I'm not. I'm looking at this collective thing because the information is coming. You know what? It feels like, and I don't know how other people feel, but it feels like more collective comprehension of the collective download, of the collective understanding. I remember having a download years ago, and they were showing me how things work on, I want to say, a normal planet. And that was basically like this, and it's metaphoric, that we have a beehive intelligence that on these other normal planets that is conscious. In other words, you go to bed at night, everything everybody learned, it's available. Kind of like you said, that the new generations will have the availability of our experience, and they won't have to go do it. Kind of like, I can do something in dimension. I don't have to do it in the physical, right? Kind of like that. But I wonder, because to me, even though we don't get mainstream media press and all that stuff, this is a different language. It's a different type of experience. It's a different mathematics. And I got to believe that the work that you've been doing and so many people around the world has really gone a lot further than even someone like you might think. I mean, there are a lot of people woke up today, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely. Every day, millions of people are awakening to this, what in the world is happening, and beginning to search, just like we all did when we began really searching. That's happening through the masses now at this point. And it's true, time and space only exists within the constraints of the third and fourth dimension. In the fifth dimension, there's no such thing as time and space. And I'll mention to you, just as a word of encouragement, when the laggard souls, eons ago, when the laggard souls came to Earth because we invited them to come, and they came through, transferred from the other planets into our solar system, and then were birthed through the natural process of birth into the physical plane. When they came into the physical plane, it was on the continent of Lemuria, which was in the Pacific, huge continent in the Pacific Island. And at the time, the entire planet was literally at the Garden of Eden state. And after the fall, when they fell so deep, and our Father, Mother God decided that Lemuria needed to sink below the healing waters, purging that. And this was long before the sinking of Atlantis and all of that, but this was at the time. Lemuria broke apart, and much of it was pushed into the southern hemisphere. And Australia, the islands of the Pacific, New Zealand, are all part of that continent. So Australia has been for a while a very critical, important part of this, because we are going back to the initial impulse of the fall and healing from there forward. And so they're powerful beings of light in Australia, and either making trips there or being called back home. Yeah. What part of Australia is she in?
She's in South Australia, and this is interesting. This is interesting what you're telling me, because the other thing I noticed too is, over as the years gone on, the sequential aspect of my day or information has become like a book. You just turn the page so in the last 24 hours. Now, when I met her 5.5 years ago, on the day I met her, I said to her, I know this place. I described it. And eventually, I've researched it. I was right. And it was in South Australia, an hour out of Adelaide. What I had gotten was that this was my own journey, right? This was my own intel, that I would go and do what I'm doing now, and then go to Australia and do the same thing, and then eventually Antarctica. And I've asked people about this over the years. And right before I left town a few days ago, a friend of mine came by and gave me a book by Judith Kuzel, who's a friend of mine who comes on the show quite a bit. And it was her first book. And I opened up the book, and in the book, she talked about why she came through Africa, and her own lineage and all that. But there was a chapter in the back, and it said, I didn't expect for Australia and Antarctica to show up. So I don't know, but what you said about the Lemuria thing, I can totally relate to. We went to Hawaii. We were called to Hawaii. We didn't have any money. We ended up going to Hawaii. We had all these Lemurian divine dimensional episodes, both conscious and in dream state, mostly conscious. There's something about what you said, and I've often felt this too, and I wonder what your thoughts are. It's almost like we're going backwards. You know what I mean? Like it's in reverse. You know what I mean?
We're going back to where the fall began, and healing, reversing the adverse effects from the fall, because from that point is when these energies. This is why we had the very first World Congress in 1987 in Honolulu and on Hawaii, which were mountain peaks on the continent of Lemuria, because we're transmuting. And I've made a couple of trips to Australia and one to New Zealand, and Uluru is Ayers Rock, Uluru. The record keeper crystals were kept there, and held there to protect them until humanity could awaken and return. And we've begun that process now. So this is happening. New record keeper crystals are with the new Earth, and the new fifth dimensional crystal and reality are being placed in Mother Earth's crystal grid system to give us a new direction. It's like what's also happened within humanity and is expanding is that we have our I Am presence has activated our 12 fifth dimensional crystalline solar strands of DNA, so we're getting a whole new archetype. And that's why the beings of light are saying that with the energy that is going to be coming in, what's happening since 555 and what's building in momentum is they're referring to a new spectrum of possibilities and new interdimensional connections and things. So this is all the kinds of things you're talking about, that we'll be developing and experiencing things that seemed fantastical not very long ago, and it'll become very normal.
I love talking to you. I don't feel like I don't repeat. I don't say a lot of the stuff that I get. I speak about some of it, but I don't. I just I'm listening to you, and it's like, again, this has all been coming to me. What you're talking about, and including the elementals. Now, we after like 2 years, we got a place in Arkansas, and that showed itself to us. It's a small town in Arkansas. In the back of the house is a forest, and I noticed the activity since March in the forest has been, I guess you could put it like this: if you were talking about in terms of vision, what I'm seeing is beyond the visible light spectrum. I'm seeing the fairy kingdom. I'm seeing the nature beings. I'm seeing the animal beings. Really, they're almost like their higher selves, right? And there's a lot of activity which you can't really explain, right? And I also knew this when I got there. There's an interdimensional portal that goes into like inner Earth, right? And so they call me over there to work on it now and then, and that thing exploded right after the equinox. Wow. They had me go over and create, like clean a space on the perimeter, and then I watched it all be released. And it was amazing. It reminded me a lot of the Sedona energy because it was very mixed. It wasn't just galactic and elemental, and it was all this stuff from on planet, off planet, on universe, off universe. I mean, it was a very powerful thing. And again, I know that just doesn't happen to me, and I know that was an experience that was explaining what's happening. But you've had to, 50 plus years, you must be just beside yourself with excitement.
I am. I not only 55 years, but I know that we have been doing this. All of us have been doing this for probably hundreds of lifetimes. Yeah. And the beings of light keep saying that. They said, you have no concept of how long you've been working to get to this point. The evolutionary process, and it is here at last. And I know that we do our activities of light, and with many activities at the World Congresses and things, there is just a sense of elation pouring forth from the heavenly realms, and through the I am presence of every person, that yes, we are moving forward in the light, and there is no turning back. And that wasn't always the case, if that was guaranteed and that was assured. That's why we heard about the two Earths, and there was talk about maybe 144,000 people would make it, or maybe just 10% that accepted Jesus as their personal savior, or all kinds of prophecies indicating that a very small number. And there were times in our evolution over the last many millennia where that was the case, that if the shift of the age had taken place right then, we wouldn't have made it. Not because we're punished, but because moving into that higher frequency would be like trying to move through a lightning bolt. We would have been evaporated at the frequency we were vibrating at. Yeah. So this is why everything in these increments is accelerating our vibration. One of the interesting things, and I know you'll understand this, but a lot of people would think I'm crazy, which I'm sure they do you too. So that's
thank you.
I have a lot of company out there. The beings of light said, if we could see the earth and humanity in comparison to 2012, when we made the shift of the ages in the initial impulse of the fifth dimension, they said the earth now would be invisible to those people. It is vibrating at a frequency, and our earthly bodies and everything, that in that density that we were in then, looking at where we are now, they would not be able to see us with their physical sights. That's the kind of shift we've made. And people keep saying, well, when are we going to notice a difference? Well, it's happening. The maximum we can withstand through the guidance of our I am presence with every 24-hour period. And it's happening subtly, maybe sometimes not so subtly. People talk about the ascension symptoms when they're feeling all these pressures and shifts. But we are moving forward, and we've gone from the densest, darkest chaos of the third dimension, which was where we were prior to harmonic convergence in 1987, to now the initial impulses of the fifth dimension. And we are just now clearing the residue of the old earth. It's not even like the old earth exists anymore. And the terminology that the beings are using with the COVID pause, this forced timeout where people had to stop, gave their I am presence an opportunity to integrate, to connect with them, to begin communicating and shifting consciousness and awareness, to open their hearts so they started realizing the oneness of all life. When people go through a horrific elemental experience, a purging like they do with inclement weather conditions, after a tornado and whatever, they don't go out to their neighbors and loved ones and say, are you a Republican or are you a Democrat? Or are you, they say, how can we help? How can we all come together? And that's what we need to do now. We need to stop this ridiculous, ludicrous us against them, because it is an illusion. It's not real. It's an illusion. And I'll just mention, I know there's so much out there about this, the sexual abuse and pedophiles and all of this kind of stuff. And I just want to put this out there as food for thought, because I'm not getting involved in all the chaos and all of the debate and all the battles. But there is a lot of information about the manipulation that's going on with the Russian bots and that kind of thing. And if we just ask ourselves, what could we say to people that would be the most atrocious thing that we could do to each other, the meanest, most awful thing that we could do to each other that would make us want to really get intervened and take action against those people?
Right.
Well, it would be pedophilia. It would be cannibalism. It would be drinking the blood of children, all of these ridiculous things that are being set up there. And I'm not even saying that might not be going on here and there. But the masses of humanity need to come together with this light force and blaze those people in those situations with so much light, not doing battle with them. If we see the negative behavior, we need to intervene and to stop it if we can, if you're counselors or neighbors or whatever, but not this global us against them, thinking that there's going to be a savior and that any political figures are going to be able to make the difference. It's going to come from us, from the masses.
No, I agree. I agree totally. And, I've been hearing for us, it's time to walk the talk. And this separation, dialogue and conversations, and it's and I know I'm front and center on it. I know I have a part in it, and I know that I'm triggered for reasons. Like, how can I do this? How can we make this work? Because what's not going to work. And I just find it. I find it. Used the word humorous or comical a while ago, but I look at the mainstream media headlines just to see what's trying to be presented, and I'm looking at them more and more every day, going, "This is a joke. This is a joke. It's so obvious." If you look at the articles over the last few weeks, they're predominantly assault against certain ethnicities, black versus white, cops versus there's all, and every bit of it, but it's the same thing every time. So
anything promoting fear-based or us against them is not of the light, period.
That's right.
Not of the light. So we need to just get that and stop becoming triggered by
Right.
that because of our compassion and because of our
Mm.
love and wanting it to stop. The way we stop it is by creating this unity consciousness and moving into love.
Right.
One of my favorite quotes from Buckminster Fuller is that he said, in order to create a new paradigm, you don't try to change the existing patterns and paradigms. You create an entirely
Yeah.
new template and pattern and make the old one obsolete. And
That's
that's what
right.
to do. That's what creating the new earth,
That's right.
patterns of love, the oneness. We need to come together, creating this. How can we work together for the highest good of all concerned, both in religions, in politics, in countries, in nationalities, in everything, so that we can really say, but if we do that, we're going to receive through the guidance of our inner knowing such viable solutions for the maladies existing in the outer world, ways to
Yeah.
heal at the environment, working with the elemental kingdom, shifting the consciousness of humanity, working with healing and transcending the capability of disease and maladies in our physical bodies. We're going to do it, but we're not going to do it by doing battle with everything. Where your
No.
attention is, there you are, and we empower those very things that we're doing battle with.
That's right. 444 people in the house on that note, so there must be a reason for that. But
Good.
and part of the what am I going to try to say here? Part of the out or the end around that I've seen on some of these platforms is the Star Family or ET involvement in the narrative, meaning that and look, to me that's the whole point. It's a narrative. It's part of the story. It's still part of this experience. It still doesn't take away from the sovereignty, the I am soul. It doesn't take away from what we started this whole conversation about. It's just distortion and distraction. But that thing that I was describing earlier, where that everything seems to be going our direction. Some people call it the golden child, the Trinity, the triad, the third energy, where two or more gather. I mean, we've talked about it a lot on this platform. We consider Soulogy that. Soulogy came to us and showed us I am now a consciousness. You guys, divine love has created it. Other aunts and uncles are going to come. And everything that we were told 3 years ago is happening. But it's just a small microcosm, as I see it, of everything happening. Do you see this non-physical connectivity that we all have together, whatever that is in literal terms? Do you see it becoming more and more of a presence? It almost feels like another person to me.
Right. It's just a shift of consciousness is what it is, because we've never been separate. We just thought we were separate. We are just moving into that frequency. So yes, that oneness, and we still are going to have our individualized expression as a son or daughter of God, but it'll be in perfect harmony with the collective. We're all cells in that all-encompassing body of God, and working with our sisters and brothers, with the extraterrestrials and things like that. There was a time, I've been around a long time, and there was a time where there would be interference with extraterrestrials, and they talk about the grays and the experiments that were going on and those kind of things. And the reality is what the beings of light said, that they weren't even really malevolent souls. They were like the same level of consciousness that we are. If our scientists had gone to another planet, they would have done those tests and those experiments just like these other souls were doing.
Yes.
They are no longer allowed to do that. Since we have moved into these shifts, they've been removed from the planet and moved higher. Yeah. But the other beings of light that are helping us, the other extraterrestrials, what we need to remember, these are the ones from the other planetary systems in our solar system, where we took on the laggard souls from their planets that were going to prevent them from moving forward in the light. And they got to move forward in the light. And their sisters and brothers, we took on as an incredible sacrifice to this planet. They know that. They are helping us. They want to help transmute. They want to help shift the consciousness of their loved ones that didn't make it last time so that they will make it this time. So
Wow.
they are absolutely helping us the maximum that they can, but they can't do it for us. They only can assist. So from, the Pleiades, the Arcturians, the Syrians, lots of wonderful, powerful beings of light that are guiding and directing us from the higher realms. But they are only assisting us. They
That's
cannot
right.
do it without us asking for their assistance.
That's right. That's right. I love talking to you. And
Well,
I never made I never made that connection before, because everybody has, certain galactic, connections that they identify with. But I never thought about that.
yeah.
I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it, like, well, I'm from here or if I'm from there. I'm from everywhere. That's the way I look at it. But I can see now the mutual, there's always an equal energy exchange, right? So I can see now that would make a lot of sense to me, that their involvement, they have a stake in it. And it's
Yeah.
not just us, it's actually what you said. That part of the story really, really resonates with me.
And
About,
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that what was one person's burden is a blessing, and another person's blessing is a burden, right? Like, this is an opportunity here where these what do you call them? These haggard souls that couldn't do it are given another chance.
Yeah, laggards, they were calling it.
Yeah.
But it's just fallen sisters and brothers.
Yeah.
They are. They are. And the beings of light, that's true that there are, when we talked in the beginning about the billions of souls volunteering to embody to help, many souls are here embodied from different star systems and things.
Yeah.
So lots of people are remembering that.
Yeah.
And as well as the souls that came here and initiated the fall. And what happened is that the sons and daughters of Earth volunteered to have these souls come through their bodies through the natural process of birth. But when they were old enough to start having some of their heavy duty karmic liabilities returned to them, which we're all responsible for,
right,
Earth evolutions didn't know how to deal with that, and have never experienced anything like those energies.
Well, we're veterans now.
Yeah, now we are.
I remember getting a download a few years back, and it was something like, so when you guys get done with this, I think they called it a summary life, or a friend of mine had told me at the time the term summary life. So when you're done with this incarnation and this all happens, you'll literally be universal healers because of the makeup of this, let's say the seeding. You could say it with the genetics, but so many different essences have been involved in the seeding of the earth. I mean, we're a composition of all of them, and I think in the same the same download I was getting, how when we bring equilibrium, let's say it's in some aspect of our incarnation, and we forgive a perpetrator or something, we're actually bridging things such as, let's say, Anunnaki, Pleiadian, and other rifts that have occurred, which is our history. This is our past, right? This is our lineage. So,
right. And some, all of those interference, the changing in DNA and all of those kind of things, those things happened after the fall, because we fell so far and in such dense frequencies of vibration that other systems like the Anunnaki were actually using the earth as a schoolroom of learning for the forces of imbalance. They came to really, so we really had so much to overcome. Actually, the caveman, Neanderthal, troglodyte consciousness is what we fell to, what we ascended from. And when they talk about, even in biblical structures, about the angels and beings of light coming and mixing with earth evolutions, there was some of that from other systems, from these planets whose sons and daughters of God were in the fall and part of the laggard souls, trying to shift the DNA back from the Neanderthal consciousness. So all kinds of
I think, and that's another good point you bring up too. And I know we got to get out of here. I didn't even ask permission to go an hour and a half. We're already at hour 36. I apologize.
Okay.
I just got so wrapped up in talking to you. But you made a really good point too, and I just want to make sure that we touch on it. You were saying how any of us that are playing, like we'll just talk present time, anyone who's playing a less than savory role or a negative role or a perpetrator role, or that's leading a group that's, in the 1% or whatever, you made that, and I just want to make sure that I understood it, because I think I align with this. They actually think they're doing the right thing.
Oh, right.
Right.
Do.
I mean, they're not going, oh, let me see who I can go kill, or,
and they may even do it because that's what they volunteered to do.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's because they're beings of light. Sometimes it's because they're really negative souls that have done horrible things. And they said, as part of their learning and their karmic experience, they're going to push it to the surface so that we can see how awful humanity felt too, so. But the beings of light have cautioned us consistently, don't ever try to judge who is and who isn't
exactly
a fallen soul, because we never know. And it's none of our business anyway.
Right.
All that matters is us and how we are individually behaving and acting out.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's talking to you is like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's been a pleasure and an honor. And I agree with you.
Well,
you can't miss a step. I mean, nobody gets out alive, but no one gets left behind.
That's right. Love Richard Bach's story, in Illusions, and he said there's a test to determine whether or not your work on Earth is finished or not. And he said the test is, if you're alive, it isn't.
Oh my! And you got to laugh too, right? I mean, there's got to be.
Key factor in my work. Humor is a key factor. Yes,
it has to be. Yeah, there's so much wisdom in humor. Well, I hope we get to collaborate again sometime. And
I'm sure we will, Todd. It's been my pleasure. I've really enjoyed it, and I love connecting with all your wonderful audience out there. Have a wonderful, wonderful experience in Sedona. Sedona is a very powerful place, and it connects directly through the crystal grid with Australia and other energies of Lemuria and Atlantis and all those energies. So it's a powerful place to be.
Yeah, it is. I've been there 6 times, and Anubis is my escort. So
good.
Yeah, we've had some pretty amazing times. It's a very special time and event. And I hope I get to get down to Tucson. If I get down that way, I'll give you a holler. Thank you so much. I don't know what else to say, but
there's nothing to say. Thank you. We don't need words, do we? Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, you take care. Take care. We'll see everybody. We'll see you in 20 minutes with Sandra and Alan from Twin Flame Divine Fire Radio. Take care. Peace out, everybody. Bye-bye.